People know when they have an immediate reaction to something. Like you eat something, you're anaphylactic, well, you're not eating that again. But it's that delayed response that people don't pay as much attention to, or they don't draw the connection.
How do we try to build that nutrition plan for our kids with that sense of balance, knowing that these things are going to get thrown in front of them?
You know, my kids go to public school. They are around stuff like, you know, if somebody has a birthday and that stuff comes in, I can't regulate that. And so I think the conversation starts with like actually talking to your kids about how they're feeling and having the conversation open about like, how does my body feel after I eat certain foods? How does my body feel after I do certain movements? So that when they do go to a birthday party, then they come home and they're like, okay, I did all that. And my body did not like the way that it felt. We have to open up a conversation for more like longer term stuff too. That goes into more of like the emotional aspects of our kids. It's not just their foods and what they're putting in their body and how they're exercising it out. It's what's on TV. It's what they're hearing from their friends. It's all of those things that are coming in that have an effect as well. And so that's a good way to start that conversation of like, okay, you were bullied. How did you feel in that moment? Then maybe bring it up a week later. Hey, how are you feeling about that right now? Because that helps our kids to understand that one event, it's going to ripple into their emotions. It's going to ripple into how they're acting with their families. It's going to ripple into how they're performing in school. And it's going to ripple into their bodies as well. I think it all just starts in conversation and connecting with your kids, making them feel seen, making them feel heard, and telling them about your experiences too.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. We're so excited to have Kasey Horrell, a functional PA at Dose Wellness with us today. Super happy that you were able to come in and talk to us a little bit. Excited to get to know a little bit more about you, about what motivates you and drives you, specifically in pediatrics with kids. You have helped my son, which is awesome.
He's a sweetheart.
So we're hoping through this message, we can empower parents to make informed decisions about their kids' health and anything from behavioral and other developmental things. So with that, I'd love to just turn it over to you for a quick introduction, maybe give us a background on what got you into what you're doing now and what kind of motivated you to get into functional medicine.
Totally. So I think like a lot of functional providers, it's our personal journey that got us into it. So I'm a PA trained in like Western medicine. I went to Midwestern here locally. And when I got out of PA school, I actually had just had my second son and I started getting awful migraines. Like never had them before. I had like a really bad aura. I would like black out. I thought I was having seizures. Like it was crazy. And that was where like I started. I'm like, okay, I know a lot about all of these meds that are like preventative meds or, you know, the tricyclic antidepressants. And I'm like, I don't want to be on any of those. I like knowing the side effects and what I had learned in PA school. I was like, there's no way I'm not doing those. So I started looking at like, I'm going to call it lifestyle medicine and how I could use like diet and supplementation and things like that to help. And I went gluten-free. I changed my diet around. I was eating really clean. It was probably like my peak functional, like physical and mental health at that time. And I started feeling great. Migraines went down to like a couple times a month, maybe, where they had been a couple times a week. But I started also noticing that my son, my second son, who I was breastfeeding exclusively at the time, that his skin was getting better. And I had taken him to the pediatrician for like these rashes. They were like these bright red, like angry rashes. And she was like, you know, baby eczema, fine, it'll grow out of it. I'm like, okay. So I made changes in my diet. I saw that it was affecting my son. And that's when it like really clicked for me. I was like, okay, there's something to lifestyle medicine that I wasn't taught. Because we get in, you know, Western medicine, we get no training on nutrition. I mean, maybe a little bit, like what does a macronutrient do? Like what are some of these micronutrients and how do they fit into like pathophysiology and you know, the regular physiology, biochemistry, all that. But nothing really like how do you treat a disease process with diet and lifestyle? It's always very glossed over. So that was when it like really clicked for me. And then I started noticing, you know, he was developing, this is my second son, he was developing some like behavioral issues and things as he went on. And I was like, okay, so what am I going to do here? So I ended up taking him to a naturopath because I took him to his regular doctor, and she was like, he's got a couple food allergies, which you've been through with your kids, he's got a couple food allergies, but they're really low level. You don't need to do anything about it. And I was like, wait a minute. He has allergies. I got to do something about this. Like, even if it's low level, it's still causing some kind of a problem. So I took him to a naturopath, and it was like a complete turnaround with just supplements for him in his behavior, in his skin, all of this stuff. And that's where it all really started for me. I was like, there's an answer here. I was working in surgery at the time. And so it took me a really long time to actually get out of that and into more functional medicine that I'm practicing now. But that's kind of where it all started for me. And I started practicing that personally and within my family. And then it turned into like, okay, now this is what I got to do. This is the message that I have to send, especially to parents who are struggling with the same things that I was struggling with personally and with my children. So
I feel like what you mentioned has become, I've heard it more and more as other podcasts that I've listened to or things I've listened to, is just the lack of training in nutrition in med school. Obviously we kind of like know about nutrition, but it's not really taught as being like a source of medicine for people.
No. And who was Hippocrates? Like, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food, right? It's been there for eons. That is the foundation. And it really is. And I think that's what drives me with kids is not only is it just the foundation for all of us, that our food is our medicine, the things we put in our body are super important, but we have to go back in the timeline too, to really like when that foundation is built. It's really challenging. And I've seen this with my older kids as I've continued on my own journey and learned more things and all of that it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So if you're not starting these things at the very foundation, which honestly is like prenatal, but even if you're just starting it with your kids when they're like infants and small children, it's so much easier to continue that momentum as they grow and then become adults and can be more in tune with their bodies and what their bodies are really needing. So that's why I like to lay that down with kids and parents so they understand it from a young age. So
I'm an 80s baby.
Yep. The best decade to be born.
Such a good decade. The music is great. I actually didn't love 80s music for a long time, but it's grown on me.
It's better.
But I look at my parents and my dad was a collegiate athlete. My mom always seemed to be the source of truth for nutrition. Always trying to be like health conscious. I look back at what we were eating and it wasn't at all. But they thought they were. So I'm curious just your thoughts on how things have changed a little bit. I know in the last couple of years, a lot of light's been shed on the food pyramid and all that. But anything you can share with us about kind of the evolution of maybe like ultra processed foods back in the 80s when it became hyper convenient to be able to have this healthy food super fast, for the working adult in the United States that was just like, they're super busy, so they don't have enough time to prepare food. Well, here's TV dinner.
Something easy for you. Yeah.
Any thoughts around that? I'm thinking through it as you brought that up and I'm like, look, my parents, they meant well. Like totally. They never would have wanted to put something, like
they didn't,
unhealthy.
They weren't harming you intentionally. Totally.
It was just like, it was this weird thing. And it felt like maybe it was the 80s where like the ultra processed, the Kool-Aids and all the things were like just booming.
Yeah.
And the cereals and the commercials around all of it. It just seemed like it was booming.
Yeah.
And we were consuming a lot of crap. So just curious on your thoughts on the evolution of that and where you see it going from here.
I mean, when you actually look at like the food labels that we were eating in the 80s versus the same food, but the label now, it is actually drastically different. So we aren't getting, when we were eating it in the 80s, we were maybe getting like say a Kool-Aid with like 10 ingredients in it. Now it's a Kool-Aid with 30 ingredients in it. So that has changed. The amount of stuff that's going in that is a preservative or that is enhancing color or enhancing flavor, that the food industry itself has evolved and grown and come up with all these new ways that they can make their food more appealing and more addictive that we also didn't have then. So it is a little bit different in that regard, but I think we also just have so much more information now.
Yeah.
We're so much more connected and we can get information on anything we want. So if we have like an intuition, like as a parent, you have an intuition like, maybe, I don't know, there's something about that food that just doesn't seem right. Like I remember I was vegan for a little while and I would eat the like vegan cheeses. And I remember like making it in the oven and the cheese would get like really like sticky and weird, like this weird consistency when I would cook it. And I remember eating it for a couple months and I was like, you know, if it looks like that, just sitting there, like what the heck is it doing to my body? And then and that was my intuition at that time. And so then I could look that up and be like, oh yeah, those ingredients are like, there's more chemicals in that. I'm better off just eating like regular cheese with one ingredient in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're just so much more connected now than we ever were before. And there's so much more information available now that I think if our parents had kind of had that same level of connectivity, there might have been some differences there. But you know, like you said, I think they meant well. My parents were the same way. My dad was a power lifter, you know, always in the gym, always kind of impressing on us that physical activity was like king. And, you know, he's 69 years old right now still in amazing shape. He's not going anywhere. But he was raised, you know, that was how he was raised. And he always ate whole foods. Very rarely did I see my dad eating like crappy foods. I think there's another thing to that. Parents don't want their kids to feel left out. Right? So you don't want your kid eating artificial colors and dyes and things like that, but they go to a birthday party and you're like, oh, okay, that's all right. You can do that because you don't want them to feel left out. And I think our parents probably were like that too. You know, like there's this new big thing and like whatever kind of new Coca-Cola, like Coca-Cola vanilla flavor or whatever it was, or strawberry or cherry vanilla. And it's like, oh mom, my friends have this. Can I get it? And you don't want to say no to your kids. And I think that's where parenting now it goes wrong. Where we're like, we just don't want to say no. We don't want our kids to feel like they can't have what other kids have, or that they're going to be made fun of or stigmatized for eating healthy. You know?
So I wonder if there's a good balance though too, because it's, first of all, it's unfortunate that our foods have things in them that shouldn't be in them. And I'm super hopeful with things going on right now that they're going to force it to be removed, specifically colorings.
Yeah.
You know, I used to work up in Canada quite a bit, and I'd go to a gas station in Canada and Skittles don't have Red 40 in them.
Okay, so that's true.
That is 100% true.
Because I don't travel outside of the country very much, and I hear that from other places, and I look up food labels, and I'm like, okay, but you know, there's so much. I don't want to say there's misinformation, but there's so much information out there that you're like, is that accurate? Okay,
you go across the border 1 mile, into Canada, and if you go to a gas station that sells, you know, the gas stations will sell, you know, like cereal and stuff too, because they're like little markets for some of these rural towns. Fruit Loops, no colorings.
Totally different.
It's made with beet juice coloring or whatever. And I remember seeing that and I'm like, this is true. Like, this is totally true. You can't find Diet Mountain Dew anywhere in the country. They market Mountain Dew caffeine free as a kid's drink up there.
Okay.
But I also think it has different stuff in it. Like the colorings are different. Yeah. So it's just, I see that and it makes me really disappointed in our system here, because it tells me 100% these people are focused on profits first. 100%. Right? 100%. Because the only reason you would do that, if you look at the same companies making the same foods for 2 different countries, that's a strain on their supply system to do that. But it's so much more profitable to have the 2, meaning the one that they can save all this money on by poisoning Americans makes me angry. So anyway, there's that piece. But the other part I was getting at is balance. I had a friend, one of my best friends growing up, who is now kind of a family member because I married his cousin. His mom was really strict. She was really like health conscious, and they never had sugar cereals. They had certain cereals like she probably thought they were healthy, but still kind of
still
not.
probably
like,
not. Yeah.
Like Wheaties and stuff.
Yeah. Weetabix.
Just anything that's just like ultra bran,
fiber cereal.
Fiber cereals and stuff, which is better. If by far it's better.
Totally.
But he never got sugar cereal until he'd come to like my house or one of our, and then he would go nuts.
Yeah.
So it was like, so I look at that also and I thought, okay, maybe there's a healthy balance here. So I'm just curious, like what advice would you have for parents that are trying to be health conscious? Let's just stay with, I mean, cereal's huge. Like it's the most convenient thing for a kid. Kids love it. They'll eat it. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to get them to eat. But with the foods that are convenient, how do we try to build that nutrition plan for our kids with that sense of balance, knowing that these things are going to get thrown in front of them?
Yeah.
Do you go all in on like, we never have any of this stuff? Or is there some moderation where you feel like, like it's okay just to take the edge off and not be too extreme?
I think that that's very individualized, right? So it depends on where you are. So, my kids go to public school. They are around stuff like, if somebody has a birthday and that stuff comes in, I can't regulate that. Like I can tell them, oh yeah, my son, I have one son who has non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So I can tell the school that he can't have those things. But beyond that, they are going to come in contact with that stuff. Just like, your friend turned family member, like he's going to go do what he wants to do when mom's not around. And so I think the conversation starts with like actually talking to your kids about how they're feeling. So you have a way of eating at your house, right? Like say there's no processed foods at my house. We eat whole foods. We do these kind of things. And having the conversation open about like, how does my body feel after I eat certain foods? How does my body feel after I do certain movements? How does my body feel after I watch a certain movie? Or how does my body feel after I went to that birthday party? And so starting that conversation around everything that you're doing, everything that your child is consuming, everything that they're putting out, how does their body actually feel about that? How does their brain feel about that? And then that opens the door for them to connect a little bit more intuitively to their own body, so that when they do go to a birthday party or they go to a friend's house and they're like, oh, I'm going buck wild. Like I'm doing all of it. I want it all. Then they come home and they're like, I don't feel so good. And then they know, okay, I did all that and I really did not like, my body did not like the way that it felt. They start to make that connection on their own. Yep. You hear it all the time, like, people who grow up in a strict household, they don't drink, right? And then all of a sudden they go to college and they just go nutty. And then they realize, either they stick with it because, of all the chemical changes that happen and everything, or they're like, yeah, no, that didn't work for me. My mom and dad were right. And if they've been raised in a way that they can say that stuff and they can honor their body without kind of not succumbing to the peer pressure, but kind of, not just going with what society says is like normal to do, then they're more likely to be able to bounce back and make those healthy decisions for their own body. I think it all just starts in conversation and connecting with your kids, making them feel seen, making them feel heard, and telling them about your experiences too. Like say you go out one night, you go to a dinner and you just totally overindulge, it's a big celebration, or you go to a wedding or whatever, and you totally overindulge. It's okay to come home and say, I did that and my body really didn't like it. That opens up a conversation for them to say, oh yeah, I ate this the other day and that didn't feel good at all.
I think it's to your point, it kind of just got me thinking about parenting in general, like whether it's nutrition, whether it's pornography, or whether it's alcohol, friends you choose. The list goes on. I just think maybe there's just an opportunity here to make nutrition just part of kind of that parental list of things to focus on, just like any of those other things that can really negatively impact them.
Right. And to talk about.
And to talk about it in a way that, going back to like, well, how does it make you feel? I specifically have one of my kids is really sensitive to just stuff. Like he loves food. He is like, he's my kid that will try anything. He loves like to try like if I have something, most of my kids are just like, nope, they're very plain.
Yeah.
And then I've got this one that just like, he loves like the different things and the flavors and this and that. But he's also my kid that is the only one that I will get migraines, and he'll get a migraine to a point of literally throwing up. If you go to a movie theater where they will sell you that, the poisonous, colorful ices, in the kids packs where they throw in like fruit snacks, ices, and popcorn, he will throw up.
Yeah. And
so it's very easy to have that conversation with him, because it's just like, okay, you know why that happened, right? And he gets it. And over time, it's almost like he's had to learn from these really tough experiences. But there's a lot of kids that don't experience that. They don't feel like the negative part of it.
Yeah, it's a lot more subtle.
They feel the happiness that comes from the food. They don't really get and they end up experiencing it probably later in life when it catches up. But but I was just trying to draw that parallel, that as a parent, we have a responsibility to just teach them, like helping them see, like, just like my buddy that you brought up, like eventually you're going to be confronted with a decision.
Totally.
And so it's almost like you have to help paint a picture that's like, hey, when you do have the opportunity to eat like this, how are you going to respond?
Yeah.
Or when this is put in front of you, how are you going to respond? When you go to college and everyone's drinking alcohol and you haven't, how are you going to respond in that moment, knowing that it's probably going to make you feel like crap?
Yeah. And you brought up a good point though, of like, in the moment, it makes them feel good.
Right.
They're like, yeah, I feel great on this. Similar to alcohol, right? It
makes me feel good.
Yeah. Like this
Pizza,
is
all the good
great.
Stuff.
Yeah. But then, it could be 4 days later that you don't feel good.
Right.
And that's where like some of the food allergy testing comes in, is then we can kind of know, like, okay, people know when they have an immediate reaction to something. Right?
Yep.
So you eat something, you're anaphylactic. Well, you're not eating that again. Or you eat something, your tongue swells up, you're not eating that again.
Yep.
But it's that delayed response that people don't pay as much attention to, or they don't draw the connection. So we do a lot of like food allergy testing on kids, and there's like 2 different types of food allergies. So you can have one that's an immediate allergen, and one that kind of is this, like, I call it like a background program. So it's like your computer, like cleaning up stuff while you're sitting here, doing on your own program, but it's doing something in the background. And it's like the immune system is coming in and it's cleaning stuff up in a way that you don't experience right away. But like 4 days later, you might have a migraine. You might feel just absolutely exhausted because your immune system has been on like overdrive. It's been putting you in this like fight or flight response for 4 days that you didn't really know about. And all of a sudden you're just like, you're pooped. Your kid's just like, or they're irritable or angry. And it's all because of this background program that's running to a food that they ate 3 or 4 days ago.
Wow.
And so that's why part of that is so important, doing those food allergies. And I get people all the time that are like, green beans? Hey, green beans all the time. Everything's fine. I'm like, yeah, but cut it out and see how much more energy you have, or see how fewer like ups and downs of your mood you have, because it does affect you. And so when we're opening up that conversation, that conversation is really helpful to have, as far as like the food and how does it make you feel for those things that have an immediate sort of change or whatever. But we have to open up a conversation for more like longer term stuff too, even if that's, how did you feel 4 days later? How did you feel a week later? And that goes into more of like the emotional aspects of our kids, like the bullying stuff and social media stuff that they're dealing with, because that's all stuff that they're consuming. It's not just their foods and what they're putting in their body and how they're exercising it out. It's, like you said, pornography. It's what's on TV. It's what they're hearing from their friends. It's all of those things that are coming in that have an effect as well. And so that's a good way to start that conversation of like, okay, you were bullied. How did you feel in that moment? Then maybe bring it up a week later. Hey, how are you feeling about that right now? Because that helps our kids to understand that one event, it has a ripple effect, and it's going to ripple into their emotions. It's going to ripple into how they're acting with their families. It's going to ripple into how they're performing in school, and it's going to ripple into their bodies as well. And so I think that's a super important conversation to have and to keep following up on things. It also makes your children feel really safe, that you care about their emotions and you care about how they're feeling, and that they can come to you with certain things. So like one of my kids was exposed to pornography at a very young age. It took him 9 months to tell me about that. And even though we have a good relationship, it was kind of at a time that I started fostering that, of asking those questions. How are you feeling about this? How are you feeling about that? And he got to a point where he was like, Mom, I have to tell you about this. I have to like let you know what's going on. And just that conversation in and of itself made him feel safer. And then he could start opening up about other things. And he could start telling me without me even asking, just, Mom, this happened today. And I'm feeling this way. And this is, it just opens up that beautiful, safe place for them that actually calms their nervous system down too.
Well, I certainly wasn't planning on talking about pornography in this session, but I think it's such a mentally disabling thing that's going on right now. And the thing that's so difficult is that it's so accessible. And there was a guy that was asked about cell phones for kids, and was basically like, okay, so we're talking about trying to keep kids safe, and the question was asked, okay, so what do you think is the appropriate age to give your kid a smartphone? And they said at whatever age you're okay with them seeing pornography. Period. So it's like, as a parent, that's like a eye-opening thing, right? Because there's a lot of little kids with these smartphones going around, and we can try to protect them, and there's ways that we can block and all that kind of stuff. But on top of that, I mean, we've had our own challenges, just with like, it's almost predatory, like things that your kids will just be in video games and other things. And I've had my 2 older boys like tell me about stuff they've come across, and it scares the crap out of me as a parent. Yeah. And so what I would encourage anybody to do is just to talk to your kids, even at a young age. Totally. Like the earlier, the better, because they will come across it somehow because of technology. It comes with a lot of benefits. Technology's allowed us to get access to information and try to find the truth in lots of things and all this, but it also provides access to things that could really, really hurt them emotionally and really like mess up.
Well, and desensitize them.
Exactly.
Like my kids like to play Fortnite, and my older boys, they like to play Fortnite. And I'm like, you're talking there, I'll hear them playing and they're like, kill that kid. I'm like, what are we talking about? I'm like, we're killing kids now? What's happening? They're like, well, it's not really a kid. It's a grown up in the game. But I'm like, okay, but now we're being desensitized to like killing. And that is not okay. So I'm like, if your kids are going to do video games, they're not inherently bad, right? Video games, technology, like you said, there's great advancements that come from it. A lot of times it does foster some creativity, like Minecraft, right? You're building stuff, you're doing all this stuff. It can foster creativity. My kids now only play like sports games, so like MLB The Show, I'm like, great, do that. You're still having fun, but you're not getting all of that other stuff that's like desensitizing you to really big topics that now we haven't even had a conversation about, like, what is death? What is killing somebody? What is that? What does that all mean? And you're learning it on a video game, And so, like I said, I don't think that those are inherently bad. But I think that there does need to be, and I'm guilty of it, there needs to be some parental kind of supervision and like test it out, People do that with movies all the time. Mom, can I watch this movie? Well, I'm going to watch it first and like see how, appropriate it is. And it's all individual. You have to know your child, and you have to know what's going to be like acceptable for them and what they're going to react to. And sometimes you don't know, sometimes the signs are so subtle that they're struggling, or that they have seen something that they don't understand. They're so subtle. And sometimes they're very obvious, like your kid who reacts, aggressively to certain foods. It's the same way with all the stuff that we're bringing in.
Right.
To the news, to the video games, to all that stuff, to those topics that they don't understand. Unless we're supervising and seeing what it is that they're consuming. And again, we're going to come across times where we don't see what they're consuming. But if we can open that conversation to them to where when it does come up and we're not there, they feel comfortable coming and saying, hey, Mom, Dad, this is what's going on. And it made me, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
I don't know how it makes me feel, Yeah. So
our kids are consuming a lot of stuff, that's for sure. And I think a lot of the overconsumption of technology and certain foods and other things, and maybe the lack of activity as well, is playing a big part in some of the childhood chronic diseases that we're seeing. And I'm curious, from your experience in kind of the more pediatric side of functional medicine, what are some of the most common like chronic diseases you're seeing in children that weren't normal before, that are becoming more common?
I mean, eczema and skin issues, huge. Some of the like behavioral issues like ADHD, even OCD, little tics that are coming up. Those are kind of the big ones. And a lot of them I think are stemming from like nutrient deficiencies. So you mentioned we're consuming a lot of things, but we're not necessarily consuming the right things, right, in the right ratios. And so some of the really like nutrient deplete foods, we're consuming these like large quantities of them, but then the kids are like still feeling hungry. And you're like, okay, why is that? Well, it's because there's not enough zinc or magnesium or, all of these other like micronutrients in there that should be, making them feel satiated and replete and full, not necessarily full stomach wise, but like full of energy and vitality. And so that's what I'm seeing a lot of. So most kids that are coming in for me, I'm immediately testing them for zinc deficiencies. I can do that in my office super easy with like a little zinc test. Just put some zinc in your mouth. If it tastes like metal, you don't have a zinc deficiency. More often than not, I'm putting it in their mouth and they're like, tastes like nothing. Like, okay, you have a zinc deficiency.
So how do you help someone with a zinc deficiency without medications or supplements? Like, what kind of foods would you recommend they really eat?
So zinc is in a lot of different foods. I mean, like your grass-fed meats and eggs and things like that, your leafy greens, it's all going to be in those types of foods, your whole foods. And if we are supplementing them, which I will do, because those kids usually are very picky eaters. So zinc deficiency, it causes a change to the actual like taste buds and the way that your brain understands flavors and textures. So these kids that are zinc deficient, they're the ones that are like, I just don't like the texture of that, or they don't like tags that are like, against their skin, or their shoes are tied too tight or things like that. So they're picky eaters. So supplementing them or changing their diet right away is often not doable. You have to fix the deficiency first. And the easiest way to do that is the same way that we test for it, which is to give them liquid zinc. And you basically do that until they can taste it. And it tastes like they put a coin in their mouth, basically. And so then they'll start to open up their palates. They'll start to not be as agitated and irritated by certain textures or noises or feelings on their body, because that zinc has come in and really calmed down the nervous system and changed how their senses kind of work and how their brain understands how those senses are coming in. Right. So, and then you can start doing some food changes. And the thing that I'll always tell kids is like, start cooking with your family. I'll tell this to parents, start having your kids cook with you. Even if that's baking cookies, even if it's something that's like, you're not changing their diet at all, have them start cooking with you and then start introducing them to new foods that you're cooking. Kids love to cook. They love to be involved. They love to like understand what went into their food. They might take a bite and be like, that's not for me. But there's a little bit of pride that goes into it, and they're more likely to try that food when you've started cooking it with them. So that's kind of my approach to like those picky eaters. Start like get the deficiency under control first, and then start introducing some different foods. Same thing for like magnesium. Magnesium's in a lot of things that we're eating. But again, some of those kids, magnesium is really good to calm the nervous system down. And so some of them are so overstimulated that then trying to make them eat a different food or change their diet becomes a fight. These are kids who are going to be a little bit more prone to like anger and irritability, not being able to sleep at night. It takes them an hour or two to go to bed once you've laid them down, or they're tossing and turning at night. And that's because they don't have enough magnesium in their diet. Or they do have enough magnesium in their diet, but they're not absorbing it. And that could be for anything. So that could be for any of our micro and macronutrients. So you could even be, taking a diet that's really, really healthy, full of healthy fats, full of proteins, full of nice organic vegetables. And you've just changed your diet to that, but your gut microbiome is so off that you're not absorbing anything. Right? So you have to kind of start with like replacing things first, and then starting to like bring the food pieces in and see how they do with bringing all of those in, like piecewise. So it's a long process. That's why I was saying it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So that's why I like to start as early as possible. But there's no like too late. Your kid's 15, bring them in.
Yeah.
Bring them in. Their frontal lobe is still developing, Yep. They're still moldable, malleable. I don't know what the right word is there, but you can still shape them and help them to understand, what it is that they are needing in their bodies. So
as far as like a gut reset for a kid, I know for myself what I can do. Probably a little trickier with a child, only because they are picky and they're on the go, and we're busy individuals and we can't always be there to spoon. Like my kids are in school right now and they're eating school lunch or whatever home lunch they took. I'm curious, what advice would you have for a parent that's trying to help reset their kids' gut microbiome to help start there and just, because it can take a few weeks to do that, even though like the gut lining,
months,
the gut lining does regenerate quickly and it turns, every 3 to 5 days or something like that. But if someone's been in a constant state of inflammation in their stomach, it could take months. Yeah. So what are some steps that parents could take to help start to reset their kids' gut?
Yeah, I would start with food allergy testing. Number one, if you have that available. So doing food allergy testing, because then you're removing a lot of the inflammatory stuff that's going into the gut that's causing, is chicken or the egg? Like, did that cause the tight junctions to come apart, or were the tight junctions apart and now things are getting in? Not really clear, but if you remove those, it does help to heal that gut lining a little bit better. Some kids, especially if they're not prone to like hyperactivity, will put on L-glutamine. That is a really helpful way to just heal the lining of the gut. Some kids don't like the way that is because it's always going to be powder form. And some kids are like, I can't deal with the powder. They don't like the consistency of it. And so for them, I'll do like aloe vera to help with that. And that just heals the gut lining. That's number one. L-glutamine. It's fantastic. So those would be like my number one and number two steps there. Beyond that, it's like I was saying, having the kids cook with you and start introducing different foods at every meal if you can. The more diversity our kids can have in their diet, the better. So if we can get them eating, if you can add like 2 different plant foods to each meal, it doesn't have to be something they've never eaten, but just something that adds another bit of like prebiotic, fiber and probiotic and things like that. That's a great step as well. Aiming for like 20 to 30 different plant foods per week for a kid, which is pretty easy when you like really break it down. It sounds like it would be a lot, but it's pretty easy when you really look at like, okay, if you made pancakes, right? Depending on what type of flour you do, I would recommend like an almond flour. You have almond flour, you grind up some like walnuts and grind up some flax seeds, and you've got 3 plants right there. And then you top it with some berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. Now you have 6 plants and you're 1 meal into your week. So it's all different foods. So diversity is a great way to start healing the gut and doing that reset. Challenging for kids who are picky eaters, but there are ways that you can incorporate that in to where they understand that you can tell them obviously that you're doing that. We don't want to hide anything from our kids, but it's not going to change the flavor profile or the texture too much for them. So that's one step. And then adding in fermented foods. That's probably the toughest step for kids. I think one that I've seen that kids really respond well to is actually drinking some kombucha, because it's like fizzy bubbly and they might not love the taste of it, but they'll take a sip.
Are those Ollie drinks fermented or no?
The Ollie drinks have they have some like prebiotic in them. And some of them, I don't know if Ollie does. There's like Ollie and there's Poppy and then there's like a bunch of other ones. So some of them have some probiotics in them. Some of them only have like prebiotic in them, or they'll have like chicory root and things like that. So you kind of have to look at it, but those are great options too. Adding those in. They do have a good amount of sugar. So I would put those like more in the earlier part of the day to avoid any blood sugar dysregulation, which is another big part of gut health. So you can add those in. You can do kombuchas. I read somewhere somebody putting in like a little bit of sauerkraut juice like into condiments to like help build the palate a little bit like that. I don't know if I would do that, but even cooking with like miso paste, that's another one that's great. Miso is fermented soy, but it's great in Asian dishes, and you can put that in, and then it gives really good probiotics and things like that. So those would be my like 4 steps: allergy testing, L-glutamine, incorporating 30 different foods in, and then adding those fermented foods when you can.
That's excellent. I was listening to someone talk about this diversity of foods, and they were correlating that with longevity. And I guess within the gut, one of the markers that was showing a correlation with longevity was that diversity of gut microbiome. So having lots of different types of good bacteria in there was a strong indicator of longevity.
Yeah.
So
it's huge.
To your point. Yeah,
totally. And then there's one other thing that I would add, and that would be, especially for kiddos who have a lot of like bloating or they fluctuate with like constipation, diarrhea, things like that, I would add in a spore-based probiotic. And the reason for that is a spore-based probiotic actually acts more as a binder for some of those bad bacteria or like the overgrown bacteria. So it binds those up, and it gives a new population of like bacteria in there, but it binds those up and actually can pull them out so that there's more room for the other good bacteria to come in and live harmoniously. And that's kind of what that diversity is you need to have all different kinds in the right ratios. Otherwise, there's room for things to come in. Competitors they'll try to step up their game if there's room. It's like in your garden, if you have a patch over here where there's like nothing growing, well, then the weeds are going to crop up. But if you have beautiful grass and all these different kinds of flowers, then there's not as much room for those weeds to really crop up.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I was wondering, man, there's so many topics I could talk to you about. I've got a million of them. But so we might have to do this again, to be honest, because I've got a lot. But I'm curious, kids that if there's from a functional medicine perspective, kids that wet the bed, like later in life, like you have kids that just naturally wake up, no problem. Yeah. You have kids that started to, and then they out of nowhere just start wetting the bed. Yeah. When they're 9, 10, maybe 11, I don't know, longer. I'm curious if you've seen that and how, like, what are some of the first things that you would do to advise a parent on how to treat that?
Yeah. The number one thing I'm looking for in that is blood sugar dysregulation. That is like hands down, that's going to be 9 times out of 10 when I see that, that's the culprit. And so it's kids eating late at night, kids eating higher sugars and having these big blood sugar spikes and dips and valleys and having their insulin be too elevated at night. So basically what happens is when you wake up in the morning, your body's got to be raring to go. So naturally, you're going to release more cortisol. That's your stress hormone. That's what you're like, get up and go, running from a bear kind of thing. But it naturally increases in the morning. Insulin does the same thing too. So your insulin is going to come up because it's getting your body ready for the day ahead of you. It's getting ready for all the activity that we as humans are supposed to be doing, even though we're sitting at desks and sitting in school and all of that kind of stuff. But that's the natural rhythm of insulin, is it's supposed to be the highest in the morning and the lowest at night. But what we've been taught is you have a big dinner and then you have dessert, right? And that makes your insulin wave completely opposite. So it makes you release more insulin in the evenings, and that sets you up for blood sugar ups and downs.
So if you have kids that are eating the same thing, but one kid has wedding problems and the other kid does not, what would you say is the difference in their two, like biologically between the two?
That could also be just what are they consuming? What is their regular daily basis? Because no two kids are going to be the same, right? So you could have your fourth grader who's having that problem, and then your kindergartner who has no problem like that. What are the social stressors that are going on for the fourth grader that are contributing to those things? Because it could be stress and anxiety that's then also causing those blood sugar changes. It might be they're eating the same thing, but how is one child absorbing things versus the other child? What is the anxiety and stress level of one child versus the other? Because anxiety and stress is going to release more cortisol, which is going to cue the body to say, it's time to be awake. And now we need more insulin. And now we need, now we're having those blood sugar valleys.
Would you say a kid that tends to be a bit more worked up, stressed out, you just got to be a bit more sensitive to them at night and making sure that after certain hours, you're just not giving them sugar?
I do think so, but I think it goes even beyond that, right? Because I do think that that's kind of a global thing. That's a global, like, human thing that we should all be, separating our last meal from sleep by about like 3 hours. And I think most people certainly don't do that. But how are you going to support their brain during that time? That would be more individualized to that one child who's more prone to stress and anxiety. What are we doing to help kind of bring that nervous system down a little bit? So for those kids, I'll use magnesium. Great for nighttime. Magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate. It just helps bring the whole nervous system down, helps them lull to sleep a little bit better. Some older kids, I'll use GABA. So if they're like preteens or teenage years, I'll use GABA on them. That GABA is the neurotransmitter that like a benzodiazepine would work on. So like your Xanax and things like that, that's the neurotransmitter that is being kind of elevated with those medicines. And so we just give GABA instead of a benzo. And that brings the nervous system down. That's your like calming neurotransmitter. Lithium is also another great one. I love lithium, not even just for nighttime, but for any kids that are being stressed out during the day. Lithium, like elemental lithium or lithium orotate. So people get freaked out when I say that. I'm like, I'm going to put your kid on lithium. They're like, my kid's not bipolar. I'm like, I know. But it is like so much lower. We're talking like 150 micrograms maybe of like elemental lithium versus the like 300 milligrams. That's a tiny starting dose for like bipolar. So it's very, very different. But lithium is it's just a nutrient that we need. It's just a mineral. It's technically a metal, but it's just a mineral that we all need that calms that nervous system down. We actually had a meeting with one of our reps from one of our supplement companies, and beyond using that for kids, he's like, I use it for adults that are like struggling with libido and struggling with intimacy. Take it at night because it drops you into parasympathetic, and then you can wake up more refreshed and like ready and raring to go.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's great for everybody in the family.
Yeah.
I started using it with my kids. I think my girls were like 2.
Oh, wow.
So, and you can get it little droppers of the lithium orotate. That's the one that comes in a dropper, and add it to water. It doesn't taste like anything. I would add it into their bottles. Yeah,
interesting.
It doesn't. Yeah,
I'm gonna look
and
into
that really helps to just calm down the nervous system. So, I think with the scenario that you were talking, like the bedwetting, what is their nervous system looking like? How is that dysregulated? And there may be very few signs of that. You might not know. You might be like, my child is so happy and they make friends easily and everything is okay. And then you have a conversation and you realize that they're having this actually happened to me. You have a conversation and you realize that they're having like some intrusive thoughts. that they don't understand. One of my kids started like not understanding what suicide was. And it was really, really hard for him to like understand and wrap his head around. And it was causing him to stay up at night and like think about it and be really, really stressed. Yeah. And then eventually have that conversation. But it was like, it's things that they're being exposed to, again, that we don't really know. And so being able to open up that conversation, I was able to support him, but it's sometimes it's very, very subtle. Those things that are stressing them out. So again, just having conversations with your kids. That's like, if there's one takeaway, I think from this, that's my like big takeaway, is having conversations with your kids, coming to appointments with a functional medicine provider who is going to have conversations with your kid, not you as a parent. Right. It's important. I have to talk to you as a parent and let you know like what's on board, because you're the one that's paying for the supplements. You're the one that's buying the food. You're doing that. But like, I got to talk to the kid and let the kid know that they are important, and let them know that like their feelings and how their body feels matters, and that I'm listening to them and I'm understanding it. And I think that's huge for parents as well. Yeah.
No, that's excellent. I was kind of transitioning from like the bedwetting and the emotional side, and those supplements are awesome. I'm gonna look up a couple of those, because I didn't know about lithium.
Yeah, it's so good.
So I'm gonna dig into that one. But
so good.
I'm curious too, what role like mold and microplastics and things like, I don't know, do you have those conversations in your practice around just some of the environmental factors and how to remove those, and what are kind of some of the early signs that you might have? Are there things that you could look out for? So I live in an old house. I'll just throw that out there. Okay. So we bought an old farmhouse here in Gilbert, Arizona. Okay. And that's a concern of mine. Sometimes I'm like, okay. So I'm just curious, like what are some early signs, like either behavioral or physical ailments that you'll start to see specifically maybe in kids that could be a sign that they might be exposed to mold? Yeah.
So a lot of it will be like really vague signs, of very vague constitutional type things, like those random migraines, feeling tired all the time, bags under the eyes. So, but without like a lot of allergy symptoms. Some kids will have some allergy symptoms, but others will just have like these bags or skin issues and things like that, that you're like, I don't know where all of this is coming from. The nice thing about a moldy house, if there was to be a nice thing about a moldy house, is that almost everyone would have some sort of reaction to that. Some people more than others. So like in your family of what, 6?
There's 7 of us.
7. Great. Love it. Okay. So in your family of 7, there's going to be more than one person who has a vague symptom, right? And one of the best ways to actually test for it is like if you take your family on vacation, or you go away for like 3 days and those symptoms all go away and everybody's great. And you come home and they're all back.
Something's
going on there. Yeah. So it can be very challenging to find that. I will bring it up at almost every visit though. If a kid is coming in to see me, they have some sort of a symptom that parents aren't getting to the bottom of. I will say for most people, we hear this a lot, that like, it all starts in the gut. It all starts in the gut. It all starts in the gut. I would argue no. I would argue that it all starts with like toxin exposure. So I'm always bringing that up. Oftentimes it's a financial barrier though, because these things aren't covered by insurance. So, it's $500 to test for molds and environmental toxins and heavy metals and things like that. So even if I can't test for those things, oftentimes I will start them on a protocol that is kind of a global protocol for just reducing the amount of inflammation, helping the system to detoxify things. So like opening up the liver detox pathways, getting kids to start like doing rebounding or using vibration plates to open up the lymphatic channels. If you have an infant or a toddler that you can't really reliably do that on, doing infant massage, great way to open up their lymphatics. Older kids, like preteens, get them in a sauna, things like that. Those are things that I'll do like globally, because I don't have to focus those on any one specific mold or any one specific metal or an environmental toxin, but I will tell everyone you can start here. You can start doing those things if that's available to you right now.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, there's for the environmental toxins, we're talking about like the BPAs and like the phenols and the perchlorates and things like that. A lot of times the best thing to do for that is just increase hydration and get them eliminating things, open up those detox pathways and things like that, and then remove the source. So if we're talking like environmental toxins for kids, no more plastic. We got it. We got to get rid of plastic. You got to get rid of your plastic.
Oh, dang. Shoot.
You're caught.
You caught me.
I caught you.
Dang
but yeah,
it.
so plastics like, plastic lunch bags,
Yep.
Plastic Tupperwares, all of those things they're leaching into our kids' foods. And
this is a tricky one because it's like what you just called me out.
Yeah. I do it too. I know.
It's tough though, because I'm even learning that you're not even safe with aluminum cans because I guess they line the inside of the cans
they're lined
with something that is a petrochemical.
Yeah.
And so it's like everything that we have in life right now somehow has been, contaminated by these microplastics. And sometimes it's just like, I don't know what to do about it.
But that's where you can do, you just always have yourself in like a cleansing state. Like it shouldn't be okay, I'm cleansing. I'm doing a 7-day cleanse. I'm doing it. Just always be in a cleansing state. Always be supporting your detox pathways all the time, because that's the best way to just get these things out. Most of the time for these environmental toxins, it's remove the source as much as possible, right? So cosmetics, plastics, things like that. You want to remove yourself from the source and then support those pathways. So sweat 3 to 4 times a week, go to a sauna if you can. Infrared sauna, better. Dry sauna, still great. You're still sweating. Or do movement that's going to make you sweat. Or live in Arizona and then you'll sweat, right?
Yeah, just get in and out of your car.
Just be here, Just fry your butt cheeks.
We're close. It's coming. It's been nice weather, but it's coming.
I know. But that's part of like just a state of always cleansing and doing lymphatic massage on yourself every day, or dry brushing, or a vibration plate, or rebounding. That's a constant cleanse for you. Making sure that your liver is supported by avoiding things that are going to, bog up the liver. So anything that is not organic, I hate to say that, but any of those pesticides and herbicides and things are going to stress the liver out. So as much as you can, eating organic, and then avoiding alcohol, of course, avoiding any other types of toxins that are going to build up in the liver, and supporting the liver. If you don't want to do like supplementation, eat broccoli. Eat cauliflower, eat those cruciferous vegetables. They give a lot of they are sulfur producing or sulfur containing, and that really helps the liver to be able to detoxify things. So instead of like just giving up and being I'm just going to be exposed to everything, just know that you can also always be in a cleansing state, and that's going to be your best bet, because our environment around us is totally set up to kill us. Totally. And it's like you walk outside and you're not breathing clean air. So you have to constantly be in a state of, I'm cleansing, I'm treating my body well, and this is how I'm going to defend against those things. And a lot of that is also keeping a clear mind, keeping a clear conscience, keeping a clear soul, being, in tune with your body, having that brain-body connection, and being respectful and honest about what's going in your body. And making sure that your children are doing the same thing all the time. I bought a vibration plate, and I swear my kids have never had more fun. They just sit on it. Like I'll do my vibration and they sit on the sides and they're just like,
It's like
and it's hilarious.
Those feet plates too. Like, are those similar? You just
Yeah. You step on it, it just creates vibration, and they sit there and they're just
like a foot
laughing.
Massage. It's great.
It's fantastic. And they're just laughing and having fun, and they're getting a benefit from it too. So getting your kids involved in that, like if you're sitting by a red light reading, get your kids over there and let them sit by the red. They don't know the difference. They don't know that it's helping them, but it is. And now you're putting them in this like constant cleansing phase, or constant cleansing state all the time, to deal with the environmental toxins that are around them.
So it sounds like step one, try to remove anything that you can. There's stuff that we cannot control, but there's a lot that we can. So removing toxins from our lives to the extent that we can do that, minimizing any use of plastic. And then really just activate
and fragrances.
And fragrances, I think soaps, deodorants, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yep.
And then activating our body's natural filtration system, which is through sweat, and like sauna is great for that as well. You talked about like a lymphatic flush. There's lots of different techniques that people do along with the vibration plates. And then
liver and kidneys.
And then if you do supplement too, I know that glutathione is pretty popular for this. I don't know if you have thoughts on glutathione.
I love glutathione. I love glutathione. My adults, I'll put on like an IM injection of glutathione.
I do that.
Yeah. Yep. So, and then kids can be a little bit trickier because if you've ever taken oral glutathione, it sort of like smells like rotten eggs. It's not super pleasant. So it can be a little challenging to get kids to do a glutathione, but not totally undoable. I think they have, Quicksilver has a good one that's like a lemon mint flavor, and you can put it in orange juice and it's pretty much masked. But yeah, any of my kids that have like skin issues, I'm 100% putting them on glutathione. It's like, because it's your master antioxidant, and your liver might not be up to snuff at that moment to be like producing the glutathione and being able to use it in your body, so you can supplement it and help that detoxification while giving the liver just a tiny moment to like chill, you know? But yeah, I love glutathione, and acetylcysteine. NAC, that's the precursor to glutathione. And I'll have people be like, well, why use both? There are benefits to using both, but you can choose one or the other. If you were going to choose one or the other, I'd go with glutathione for most things, except if we have someone who's got like respiratory issues, then I'm going to do NAC because it has better respiratory penetration. So, but those are great things to add in for the detox pathways or to support detoxification. Kids that are a little bit older, like maybe over 4 years old, I'll do some herbal tinctures as well. Sometimes a little bit of milk thistle, dandelion tea is a great one to help support the liver as well. Usually it's liver detox that we need kids to be like supported in, right? Because you can get them on a trampoline and let them rebound because they think it's fun. You can get them, sweating is a tough one, but if they're active, you should be able to get a kid to sweat at least a couple times a week. So it's usually like liver stuff that I'll do. And that's actually how I will support some kids who decide to get pokes and jabs and things like that too. If they're not like getting their infant rounds, it'll be like the kids that are getting, like the 4-year-olds and up, just to help support those detoxification pathways during that time so that they don't have as much of a reaction to those things.
Well, this is good. I know that we're a bit short on time now. Like I said, I have so many more questions that we'll have to cover another time.
Yeah.
But last question I'd like to ask, this is the name of our podcast is the Generational Health Podcast. And, we talked a lot about my kids and your kids and all the kiddos that you see over at Dose Wellness. And I'm just curious, as I bring up that theme, building generational health, what does that mean to you?
Building generational health. I think that it's multifaceted for me, but I think that it is being able to have health not be so stigmatized for my kids, and for all the kids that I see. I think you brought up in the beginning of our parents trying to do the right thing for us. And I know for me, that ended up turning into an eating disorder. And that turned into years and years of, a disordered relationship with food and with health that I'm still healing from. And I think for me, that means honoring my children where they are and meeting them and understanding that that's part of health as well. Is that maybe they're not ready for certain things that I know are good for them. And your kids are probably the same way, and everybody else's kids, and meeting them where they are is a huge part of health as well. And it will empower them to understand their health as they grow and as they then have their own children. And so it's more, I think it's more emotional health for me and mental, and just this like this global love and abundance and peace-filled health rather than focusing on one aspect, one area of like physical health, which is where I think we all kind of tend to focus, or like, you know, on this type of podcast, and like in the realm that we are, people are coming to for physical health, and making sure that we're bringing in the other aspects of that as well, and making sure that it's surrounded in love, and that it is a peaceful process. I think that's where we'll find that generational health moving forward, where it's sustainable and makes someone feel full and abundant and at peace.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'm a big believer that, I've mentioned this on other podcasts too, but, for me, it's not just about physical health. Yeah. I strongly believe that you said the brain body connection. I'm a big believer that our physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health is all connected, and we cannot be healthy beings unless they're all aligned. Totally. So it's a very complicated piece, but we have to focus on all of it. Yeah. And I appreciate everything you're doing in helping kids, helping my kids, because they are the next generation. Yeah. And you know, what we teach them, what we show them, how we parent them is how they're going to teach and parent their kids one day too. Yeah. So I appreciate all you're doing, and thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. This is great.
Awesome.
Yeah.